Hooray, hurrah! Once again, the Greg Proops Film Club convenes here at Hollywood's most exciting confabulation of cinematic excellence, the Los Feliz 3 cinema here, located in the groovy confines of Los Feliz. The American Cinematheque presents, and tonight we're very excited to present the 1987 classic by Norman Jewison, starring Cher and Nicolas Cage, Moonstruck, ladies and gentlemen. That's where you applaud. Hooray, hurrah. We're very, very excited to be back here. We haven't been back since Halloween. We've been on the Mad Road, and hardly anything has happened since Halloween in this country. It's been pretty uneventful. I'm glad to have you guys out. I'm sure you're as sick of seeing your loved one as everyone else is in America. And I hope that, like me, you're not talking to a lot of them. Thank you very much. A lot of relatives in Arizona who feel that fentanyl was a huge problem. My problem is they haven't taken enough of it because they're still alive. And here we are during the holidays. There's really no other time of year where you're forced to sing about how festive you feel. They don't have Easter carols, you know. You see those bunnies hopping and Christ is rising there too. But here we are, and we're in that in-between time, the taint of the holiday season, right? When Christmas has tailed off and we're in the middle of Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, coincidentally, Hanukkah and Christmas falling on the same week, which I'm sure is a very good omen, and then the New Year starting all too suddenly. And I feel with this New Year starting, maybe we could put it off by 6 months and just kind of hang on that one for a minute. Let things shake out a little bit before we really jump right in to 2020. Whatever the next year is. So here we are, and thank you for coming out and visiting us for our holiday selection. My wife Jennifer is the curator of the Greg Proops Film Club, and she picks every picture that we show here. I've picked one or two over the, oh my goodness, over the years. But I was watching one that I picked the other night, Albert Finney's Scrooge. Anyone ever see that one, the musical? It's a musical with Albert Finney, you guys, with Albert Finney singing, because that's the kind of taste I have in movies. So we let Jennifer select this one tonight, and it's one that everybody likes across the board, young and old, gay and straight. It's really a high, oh God, I was going to call security for a second. There was someone crouching in the front. How are you, Betty? Yeah. Try not to get too many go on, take it. So, right? It's a cinematheque, so I should be really serious about film and shit. Well, I think you'll find when the Malays first attempted there to run It's impossible to be pretentious about show business when you live in Hollywood, because you're in the same business as people named Gigi and Kim. And so you really can't take yourself that seriously, and I know I don't. I hope you guys have had a groovy holiday. I got to go to London because I was in a movie once. I'm in The Nightmare Before Christmas that, by the way, Tim Burton didn't direct it. It was a poem that he wrote. A fellow named Henry Selick directed The Nightmare Before Christmas, but Danny Elfman wrote all the music and whatnot, and we went to London and we performed it, and with a giant orchestra and whatnot, and Baby Spice, Emma Bunton from the Spice Girls, was Sally in this version. Yeah, you're goddamn right, dudes, because that's how I roll. I was huge in the 90s, I heart the fucking 90s, and the Spice Girls were there, okay? I'm gonna buy some cable TV and get this shit on fire. I'm gonna get a Kia. I'm gonna show everybody that the 90s were the greatest of all decades, because the internet was in its nascent form, and we didn't have social media, and we elected Clinton a bunch of times, 6 or 7 times during the 90s. There was this enormous peace and prosperity scare, and then it went away when we let the ugly, icky white people back at the helm. So there you are. Anyway, we had a great time in London, and London's as awesome during the winter and Christmas time because it's dark from about noon onward. The sun is very reluctant in England in the winter. It comes up in the morning and is like, shit, and then just kind of climbs down as hard as it can It's cold. I remember saying to someone when I lived in England in the 90s, by the way, I said to them, it gets dark so early here. And they went, well, what time does it get dark in California? And I was like, when the sun fucking goes down. That's when. Not at 2 in the goddamn afternoon, okay? And as much as I like eating McVitie's chocolate biscuits all day long and drinking tea, the sun goes down abruptly there. And so we played, and you know, there's magic and there's lights and stuff. And English people are happy for 2 seconds of their lives. And because it's dark, they can't see each other, so they really can get into romance for once. I can say this because I lived there. And, but the English aren't the most romantic people in the world. They really aren't. Talking to, well, I mean, it's like talking to Americans about reading, isn't it? Talking to English people about sex, you're like, it's just, it's a non-starter. It's not going to get off the ground, really. Like talking to Americans about history, they're like, what? And I'll say to people, I was in London, and they'll go, Americans will go, London, Paris? I swear to you. Yes, London, Paris, the Twin Cities. Connected by that ice bridge still. But the cold never bothered me anyway, so there we are. I've just finished reading Volume 1 of Cher's biography, which is called Cher, a Memoir. And it's below it, it says Part 1. And it's 200 and some odd pages long. So I'm expecting there to be 4 parts, like Proust. Eventually, it'll be in an enormous box set sitting on top of my bureau. I have a bureau. It's near my credenza. And I read Barbra Streisand's biography last year, and it was 900 pages long. Thomas Pynchon interrupts Barbra Streisand's biography halfway through. There's a pop-up of Thomas Pynchon, and he's like, is this going to end? I mean, the Quran isn't that long. The Bhagavad Gita, the Torah, the Kabbalah, the Book of the Dead. I mean, wow, it's Barbra Streisand. And it's rangy. I mean, like it goes from the time when Earth was a primordial swirling ball of gas, and then a lightning bolt hit some protein, and she popped out and sang, don't tell me not to live, just sit and putter, right? That was how the Earth was born in her book. And then there's all these stars Barbra Streisand worked with, right? Like Omar Shah. I mean, a lot of you are younger than me. Everybody here is younger than me. So I feel like John Huston in the fourth Planet of the Apes movie. Fifth Planet of the Apes movie. I mean, I know there's like 10 more, but I haven't seen any of the other ones. Only the ones that have Roddy McDowall in them. Welcome. Thank you for coming in on a Roddy McDowall reference. That's what the Greg Proops Film Club's all about. Throwing out shit that no one cares about to a group of people who wish the movie would start. John Huston plays the lawgiver in the fourth Planet of the Apes movie, and that's who I feel like in this. And by the way, John Huston wore no makeup in his role as an orangutan in the movie. Then there was a time when humans and apes lived together. There was an ape called Caesar. Tonight we're showing Moonstruck. Moonstruck? What's Moonstruck? And so I'm in the lawgiver tonight, and Barbra Streisand, in her book, her 900-page book, she has an affair with Omar Sharif, and then she won't say whether she has an affair with Robert Redford, but I want to hip you to this part. She says that she wanted to make a sequel to The Way We Were, which I assume, yes, thank you. First of all, it's called The Way We Were, so sequel, okay. The Way We Were Later. The way we eventually ended up. The way things, you know, fell together after, which I thought would have been a good idea. It would have been 20 years later, and she'd have been a commie, and he'd have been, you know, white. He'd have been Goyim, and she'd have been Jewish, and that would have carried on and all that. And then later in the book, she talks about her dog, and her dog passes away, as dogs do. I'm not trying to harsh your holiday Mel. No dogs were harmed in the making of tonight's podcast, as far as I know, although any dogs listening later are subject to my nasality. And anyway, because she loved her dog so much, she had it cloned. And yeah, I know a lot of you are like, can you do that? Is that legal? Yeah, you'll find that a lot's legal in America right now. And not only did she have it cloned, there's 3 clones of her dog, which is a great movie. Sandra D, 3 dogs that are cloned? Connie Francis, I can't remember, but it's a wonderful, I seem to have lost everyone. It doesn't matter. If I was alone in a room, I'd be doing this. I think you've already got that idea that it really doesn't matter that much to me. I talk about it all by myself quite happily. And hi, welcome. We were talking about Roddy McDowall earlier. Now we're on to Barbara Streisand's Cloned Dogs, which is the name of my next album. So she has her dogs cloned, which to me seems a little excessive, but hey, maybe I never loved a dog that much. Although I cried at the end of Old Yeller, like most people, and no one's seen Old Yeller here, so I don't want to spoil the ending. But it's not a happy ending for Old Yeller. Although they should have done a sequel, right, of course, called Old Yeller, Now He's Really Old. Super old, so old that he's not alive, not no more. So at the end of her book, she goes, I'm sitting in Malibu one day, contemplating, and because contemplative is the tone of the book. And she goes, a cloud rolled by, and it was clearly in the shape of my dog. So I called my assistant, and my assistant came running out and took a picture of it, and there's a bunch of photos of this cloud in the end of the book. And she says, my dog was saying goodbye to me, I'm certain of it, and my dog formed into a cloud. Now, I noticed that you've gone all quiet here because obviously we all pursue different belief systems in this room. And evidently I've found the superstitious group that believes that water vapor combines according to the emotional needs of those who've lost canine recently. And you are amongst that group, and I love you for that. I hope that if some animal in your life that you're very fond of passes away, that in fact you will see a cloud of it flying by, and be lucky enough to have an assistant you can yell at from your pool to come and... So Cher's book doesn't get up to this movie. Volume 1 only goes up to when she's in the stage show, and then she marries Greg Allman, right? And then she says she never does drugs, but she marries Greg Allman. She says she never does drugs, but she marries Greg Allman. She marries Greg Allman, she never does drugs. I hate drugs. I hang out with Keith Richards every weekend that I can. And often I will be with Mariah Carey operating the OxyContin bazooka during the holiday season so that I can take down errant elk and whatnot that are running around my neighborhood. Recently, I had an elk that I loved quite much pass away, and I looked up into the sky and saw that it had formed a marshmallow configuration, so I called for my assistant and then realized I don't have one because my career hasn't sent me on that path. But I'm going to Craigslist one for the next elk that dies. So Cher doesn't get to her movie career in this book, so I'm presuming volume 2, volume II of Cher is going to be the movie career starting, right? Because she gets in Silkwood, right, with Mike Nichols, and then eventually makes this fine picture, Moonstruck. Now, in her book, at one point, she says she was nervous to go on without Sonny, right? When finally Sonny and her break up, and she's got her own act and whatnot. And those of you who haven't seen Cher, I'm certain everyone in this room has a very good idea of who Cher is because she's been bloody famous since 100 years now, and she's absolutely worth it. So 20 years ago, I went to see her farewell tour. 20 years ago, she had a farewell tour. She has not left. And by the way, the farewell tour I saw was the second year of 2 years of the farewell tour. She did a whole farewell tour and then did it again and called it the farewell tour again. Because Cher plays by rules that we don't even begin to understand. Her name is not Cher, it's Cheryl. She thought it was Cheryl Lynn. And then she asked her mother, And her mother said, oh, no, it's Cheryl. And she's like, why didn't you tell me my name was Cheryl? I've told everyone it was Sherilyn for 80 years. And her mother went, I don't know, I was high when I had you. So that's how good the book is. It's wildly good. No drugs, Greg Allman, hey. Guess what? He was doing drugs. She was mad about it. I found out he's doing drugs. I'm like, what? One of the Allman brothers is high and shit? How'd that fucking happen? Didn't anyone tell them not to wear wallets on their belts when they were in their 30s? So, in the book, her assistant, she's nervous to go on stage, and she's going to go on some big concert or whatnot. And she's nervous to go on. And she says, my assistant began to understand, and this was my favorite sentence in the entire book, and I'm going to misquote it slightly, but that you'll get the gist. My assistant began to understand what very few people know about me, that I'm really sensitive. Now, I feel that all of us really need a platform to express to the world our sensitivity. And Cher had hers. You may wish to just stop someone as you leave tonight, whether you're going down to the Fat Burger down the road here, or the U.S. Bank, or if you're just going to, what is it, next door Figaro, whatnot, or if you're going up to Fred to meet the hipsters. You might just want to stop when your server comes up to your table and goes, what'll it be? Go like, a lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm sensitive. And did you see a cloud today that was shaped like a gazelle? So when they made this picture, they wanted Maureen Stapleton to play the Olympia Dukakis part. And the casting director, Mr. Rauch, remembered Maureen Stapleton's quote evidently was too high. And although she's a fabulous actress, they ended up getting Olympia Dukakis, and she ended up winning the Oscar for this movie. This movie won every bloody Oscar you could win, except for Best Director for Norman Jewison, who never got Best Director, even though he directed In the Heat of the Night, which is an unbelievably superb motion picture about race relations in America, and it's a little too on point for right now. And he also directed The Thomas Crown Affair, which is my favorite. I know that In the Heat of the Night should be my favorite, but I'm extraordinarily, and may I say, reassuringly shallow. Just when you think it's going to get heavy, I'm going to talk to you about Barbra Streisand's dog for like a year. So, The Thomas Crown Affair stars Faye Dunaway, not the remake with Rene Russo and Channing Tatum, but the one from the 60s. It's Faye Dunaway and Steve McQueen, right? And like, why is it so great, Greg? Because unlike all Steve McQueen movies where he has like leather patches on his elbow, or like in The Great Escape where he's got the leather jacket, or other movies where he wears like a sawed-off sweatshirt or whatnot, or Bullet where he wears like those awesome, awesome high-top desert boots. In The Thomas Crown Affair, he wears a three-piece suit. Yeah, fuck you. And Faye Dunaway has, I think, 225 costumes in an hour-and-a-half movie, including the biggest false eyelashes in the history of mankind. At one point, you can see her actually listing because the weight of her eyelashes is drawing her towards the mantle of the earth. There's a dune buggy scene where they get casual, and then it's white jeans and cable knit sweaters. And yeah, and a baseball hat without a logo. I mean, if you like clothes, the Thomas Crown Affair might be the greatest of all caper movies because the wardrobe is to fucking die for. There's a lot of suits in it and little shorty hats, which no one wears. Yaphet-Kotto's in it. Anyway, Norman Jewison gave Quincy Jones a lot of his movie scoring career. He scored the movie The Cincinnati Kid for him, and he also scored the movie In the Heat of the Night for him. Norman Jewison also got a picture made called The Landlord that we showed earlier this year. That's Hal Ashby's first picture, and it was because Norman Jewison stepped in that they were able to even make that movie. It's a movie about a white guy who's rich who buys a tenement building in New York and then has an affair with a black woman who lives in the building and ruins everyone's lives. In fact, this year, these are the pictures we showed here at the Greg Proops Film Club. Let me just run over them. It's not 12, because we work a lot. We showed Smiles of a Summer Night by Ingmar Bergman. And I got to say something that I never thought in my life I'd get the chance to say. It's Ingrid Bergman's comedy classic. He doesn't really have a lot of comedy classics. Just one. And that's the one we showed. Magnificent Obsession with Rock Hudson, where he accidentally blinds Jane Wyman. Jane Wyman? And then he spends years becoming an eye surgeon so he can cure her. It's fucking good. Everyone went quiet. That sounds sad. Have you ever seen a Rock Hudson movie? There are no sad Rock Hudson movies. He makes movies good again because his dick is huge. Also, it's by Douglas Sirk, and Douglas Sirk doesn't take you there. We showed The Landlord by Hal Ashby, produced by Norman Jewison. 8.5, Fellini's movie. Exterminating Angel, the Louis Buñuel movie where a bunch of rich white people are trapped in a room together and can't get out because their own psychology binds them to the room and to their own hideous wealth and ignorance of the poor. Again, a little too on the money for right now. The Band's Visit, which you should really see, about an Egyptian band that goes to Israel and gets lost and ends up in a tiny Israeli village. And The Black Cat with Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, which was our Halloween picture. And Jennifer picked all these movies. And then, of course, tonight's classic. So they didn't want Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage in 1987 was not the giant star that he is now. And by the way, I'll go further on this. I will say that you've got your Val Kilmers and whatnot, your Mickey Rourke, this, that. And then, of course, you've got all these giant stars from the 80s that were so big and whatever, Richard Gere and Tom Hanks and shit. And I say Nicolas Cage is fucking more awesome than all of them. How do you like those fucking apples? He is a superb movie star. Some people call it overacting. He's characterized it as mega acting. And it is. He's in a lot of awesome movies. And I'm going to hip you to one that you haven't seen called Lords of War. And if you haven't seen this picture, after this one, not funny, but a wonderful movie with Nicolas Cage in it. Yes, you can go Vampire's Kiss if you wish. So after he made this movie, then he made Raising Arizona with the Coens. And then he was a big star after that. And then he got the Oscar and all that jazz. And then, of course, the awesomeness that we all know. And then the 16 different franchises where he gets his shirt off and wears different wigs. But he was just a young up-and-coming punk in this one. Now, his uncle taught at San Francisco State, where I attended university back in the 40s. We had just beat the Germans in the war, and America looked so fresh and new again. Harry Truman was president. It was crazy. His uncle August taught at San Francisco State. And I didn't take any classes with his uncle August, but my friend Brian was a major. And it wasn't even, I think I took acting or something. It was called Creative Endeavors in Goofing Around and Wasting Time was the name of the major. And August Coppola in his office had an espresso machine. And someone just went, wow. Yeah, that's the kind of fucking film insight you get from this film club. Yeah, fuck you, Paul Feig, or whatever your name is. So Cher fought to get Nicolas Cage in this picture, and then they made it. When you see, there's a big family scene, Norman Jewison said it was the hardest scene he ever shot in his career. Mind you, he shot in the heat of the night, in the South, in the 60s. And yet he thought that this comedy movie had a scene in it that was the hardest scene he'd ever shot in his career. So I leave it to you. I have no insight to give from Cher's book because she hasn't reached the Moonstruck portion of her career yet in the book. But I will say that Moonstruck is before the wig period and before the I Believe period. Now, one last Cher story, and then we're going right into the picture here. 20 years ago, as I say, when I saw her on her second farewell tour, I was with Drew Carey, Colin Mockery, and Brad Sherwood doing improv in Atlantic City. And we were playing a hotel that was owned by a person whose name shall go nameless. And it was the shittiest hotel I have ever stayed at in my life. And there was a table in my room, and I leaned on the table, and it wasn't a table. It was a piece of mortar board with a cloth over it, and it flipped over. Yeah. Yeah. I wish I was making that up. So I saw that Cher was playing on the boardwalk, and because I knew I had Drew Carey with me, I asked the casino manager, whose name was like, you know, Delbert McMafia or whatever. Hey, don't mention it. You know, people want to get people back on the fucking floor. Hey, but come on, zing, 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 go go booju booju boom. Like, really? You're talking that way? He called us yous. You know, yous guys who do the fucking, like, you don't have to do this. You can talk like a person. Oh, right, we're in Jersey. So, which basically, if you've ever been to Atlantic City, it's like an extension of Philadelphia. Like, if you stretched all the tassels from all the loafers of Philadelphia, they would reach to Atlantic City. So I said, may we have 4 tickets to the Cher show? So we went to the Cher show. And we had a very gay date. We went to Italian food beforehand. And almost got in a fight with a guy from Jersey, which is easy to do, because all you have to do is literally look at someone cross-eyed from New Jersey, and they have a fucking heart attack. So we go to the Cher show, and she comes out in a ringmaster outfit. And she goes, it's the Cherest show on earth. And I'm with a bunch of improvisers, and of course we all went, it's the greatest Cher on earth. We were trying to punch up the dialogue a little bit. And in those days, this is how long ago it was, she went, look out, Brittany. Yeah, look out, Brittany and Christina. There's a new fucking sheriff in town, right? And then she did If I Turn Back Time, right? If I could turn back time, right? And she wore the outfit that she wore in the video, which was like a Q-tip, you know, and an afterthought of material. Like it was someone imagined material that was covering the snoochus area, and that was all there was. And she was 60 then, I suppose, or right about then. She was just fucking awesome. Then at one point, a bunch of elephants entered the stage. Not real ones, but like, you know, the pretend ones. And no, I wasn't imagining it. There were giant, fake elephants. And then a bunch of people rappelled from the ceiling on ropes and shit. And so they started swinging around, and there was elephants. So it was Cirque du Soleil meets the Lion King. And I thought, of course. She was sitting in Malibu, and she went, I fucking love the Lion King. And I fucking love Cirque du Soleil. I'm gonna put that in my show. And then sing Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. I'm leaving now because I want the movie to start, and I want you to still come back next week and join us here. But I will say, we were really cheering for the song Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves, and another song called Dark Lady. And then a very, very problematic song that Cher had a giant hit with when I was a kid called Half Breed. Yeah, thank you. You're right to go quiet on this because it's shockingly appalling. My father married a pure Cherokee. My mother's people were ashamed of me. Yeah. That's what I love about the people of today. I love that you're sensitive, and I love that you have feelings. I really do. If you grew up in the 70s, you were so buffeted by bullshit that at a certain point you were like, really? Not only was the song called Half Breed, when she sang it on TV, she wore a war bonnet and sat on a fucking Palomino pony. Because that's how awesome her commitment to awesomeness is. And now I give you from 1987 her Oscar-winning role, ladies and gentlemen, Cher in Moonstruck.